Let me see you go back.
Okay, so who wants to start? You can start. Ladies first.
Sounds good.
Okay, so what are you mixed with?
So I am black and white. My dad's family is originally from Missouri. He grew up in Boston, Massachusetts.
Is he, which one is he?
He's black.
Okay.
He's black. And my mom is white. She's a mixture of Irish, Flemish, English, and German. I did this ancestry project in 4th grade and traced my mom's side all the way back to the Mayflower. So there's a lot of history there, and I grew up knowing that history. Don't know much history on my dad's side. My full name is Elizabeth Flanders Kennedy. It's a very waspy white girl name. Flanders is a region of the Netherlands in Belgium that Flemish people are from. So part of my mom's heritage is Flemish. So I grew up kind of with that history. And Elizabeth Flanders was my mom's grandmother, so I'm named after that. And then Kennedy, my surname, is inherited from the Irish slave owner that my dad's ancestors came from in North Carolina. So I feel like just in my name, it's so starkly divided down racial boundaries.
That's really interesting. So how does your family feel about it? Like, how did your grandparents on both sides?
So on my dad's side, it wasn't a big deal at all. The family joke is that like my dad, my grandfather, and my great grandfather all ended up marrying white women in their lives. And
It's interesting.
it is interesting. Yeah, I grew up hearing stories about my grandfather, my step grandma Aaliyah. When they would drive down south, he would have to drive in the front as if he was her chauffeur. Because it was still so taboo.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty
crazy.
It's pretty unbelievable. So they were fine with it. My grandma, who is black, my father's mother, she wasn't thrilled with the idea of my dad bringing home a white woman for sure. But she grew to love my mother. And on my mother's side, it was a totally different story.
I bet.
Yes, racism runs deep in my family for sure. My grandfather, my white grandfather, he was a U.S. senator, like very highly regarded. He was really passionate about civil rights legislation. To this day, has appointed more federal black judges than any other congressman in history. And he says that's like his most proudest achievement. So my mom grew up in that household that was very racially tolerant. Even in the 60s, 70s, 80s, when obviously that didn't reflect the political climate. But my grandmother definitely had a lot more reservations, and her husband, so my step-grandfather who I grew up with, is a total racist, total Islamophobe, homophobic, xenophobic, insert, minority group. He's probably hates them, discriminated against them. And when my mom first came to them, like, hey, I want to marry this black man, they actually offered her $50,000 to walk away. So, and this was like in the late 80s, so I can't even imagine how much money that would be
For sure.
today. So like very, very different reactions to my parents' interracial relationship. And my dad, my mom was, the first woman to go to college in her family, and my dad didn't get to go to college, and he had 2 kids and wasn't financially stable. So all of these, I think, were reflected on his race instead of the fact that, he was just Chuck, a man, my dad. So it was definitely a lot harder for my mom to bring a black man home than it was for my dad to bring a white woman home.
So, okay, so I'm gonna move to you, and then hopefully we can come together with our conversation.
Sure, yeah.
So what are you mixed with?
So I'm mixed with black and white.
Okay, so your mom's white.
Yeah.
And your dad's black. How'd your mom's family feel about it? How's your dad's family feel?
I can't speak to how they feel. I know growing up, I had an interesting relationship with my grandma, who all my grandparents passed before I was 4 or 5. But my grandma on my mom's side we developed a relationship because we lived in the same city. And I remember growing up, my dad never explicitly said anything about the relationship that he had with my grandma, but there was definitely a certain amount of reticence that I think was instilled in both of them, and it became apparent as I became older, because they never really were close, and the relationship that I had with my grandma was also one of distance. So even though she was my grandparent and I was her grandchild, there was never that feeling of. I remember my sister and I would always talk about the way that the other grandkids were treated, and it was never something that was like it wasn't to our detriment. It was like something that just became that we became cognizant of. Yeah, like I remember she would always, it was just like this feeling. You can't pinpoint it. It's like you can't pinpoint the way that like somebody treats you. You can't always put that in words, but it's like a feeling that you have.
For sure.
And that's just the feeling that I had. It wasn't.
But what was it?
Like I know, like it's funny because like when my grandma passed, I reflected on our relationship, and I really did, in retrospect, have a lot of love for her, and I think she had a lot of love for Alyssa and I. But that's just what I felt.
So you felt like you weren't treated as well.
I felt like, yeah, because my mom, it goes back to my mom's relationship with her, because my mom left the house when she was 18, and she was always dating black guys. And she was kind of like the black sheep, is what my uncle said. It was what I came to find. My uncle was like really just, one day he was super open. He was like, yeah, your mom was like,
yeah, your mom was.
She was the black
for
sheep.
sure.
She was the
That's
black
crazy.
sheep because she, she grew up in a conservative family, and my mom was really liberal. She had a liberal mind, and she, her and her brother were actually, like really involved in different ethnic scenes. And so there was a bit of backlash from the family, and when my mom brought home my dad, I think that really like sealed the deal. I think that sealed the deal.
It's crazy because like you describing this part of your family is literally mine. Like it's my mom's the black sheep of the family.
Yeah.
She dated the black guys, but it's like the same thing. That's really interesting that like somebody else had that same experience. Like, so do you have cousins too? Like,
Yes, I have white cousins and then.
okay, and black cousins.
Yeah.
So is there like a difference that you can tell, like how you were treated, or like how you communicate with them, or anything like that?
That's interesting. I can't say that it's that prominent. Okay, well, actually, I should back up. So my mom has 2 siblings. I have never met her sister. I have met 2 of her sons. She has 3 sons. But I only met them as an adult because it was things that we decided as cousins, who shared grandparents, where first cousins were like, yo, we want to make this relationship happen. We kind of want to move past this sickness, this toxicness in our family. And my aunt, this mystery aunt that I've never met, she basically rejected my mom after she married my dad. So that's definitely a very like tender wound in our family. And my grandparents have maintained a relationship with her and her children and her family. So like I remember going over to my grandma's house and like, I don't know, like I remember not seeing any pictures of like my siblings and I up. It would just be pictures of like Kathy, like Kathy's kids, or like Donnie's, like white kids, like just like stuff like that. Meanwhile, like the Confederate flags like over the mantle. It's just,
yeah, and who's to say like who's this? Okay,
Wow, that's
yeah,
deeper.
in Charleston,
Okay.
South Carolina.
It's
That's my
very
step
real.
grandpa though. That's like not like my grandma. Like I don't claim him. We have no blood. Like I grew up with him, but like
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
just
crazy.
little things like that
Oh my
I would
gosh.
notice. Like why are there no pictures of us in the
Yeah.
house? Like that was really weird. But like I do really believe that my grandparents love me. They love my siblings and I so much. And I think it unfortunately really took grandchildren for them to like come around and accept my dad. But they now like have a really good relationship with my dad. Obviously, I think this past election really took a toll on every family that has falls down any type of line. Like it's just this has been such a polarizing, emotional time. So that's definitely been like the elephant in the room. No pun intended. But yeah, my cousins were definitely treated like we could just tell there was a different dynamic.
I feel like that's a common theme now. I feel like that's a thing in mixed experiences. Most of the time there's like a tension there.
I definitely think the whole cousin relationships are very shaped by our parents' relationship to their siblings and our parents' relationship to their parents.
Yeah.
So all of what we face as children is definitely through that lens of like that family like trauma and all that shit that happened decades before us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all very warped by the time it gets generations later to us.
Yeah. So, okay. So moving forward with like school and how like that family dynamic affected you just with like your peers and like what kind of schools did you go to? Did you go to predominantly white schools? And then when or if or how did you identify racially? Like with your black side or your white side, or you didn't really at all? Like which one did you identify with more as you grew up? So kind of getting into that.
Yeah. I grew up in an all-white school. My sister and I, we went to a private Catholic school, which Catholicism is predominantly white. So all my teachers were white. I was like one of only 2 black kids in my class. And that was up until 8th grade, where I switched to a public school and it was a lot more diverse and my friend circle was expanded. But up until then, I think up until 5th grade, 4th grade, really, I guess I should say, there was a point, and I can't remember what age it was, but I want to say it was 4th or 5th grade, where all of my friends were standing in the mirror. It was old enough where we had the phones to take a picture,
Okay.
Flip phones?
Yeah, the flip phones to take a, and we were standing in the mirror and we were like taking pictures. And I realized in this moment that I was different, and it was like it wasn't. It's because they were all fixing their hair, and I was like, just again this feeling that you had. And
How was your hair at the time?
It was short.
Okay. It was curly.
Short.
But it was like short like that, or like
Yeah.
you had curls coming out?
No.
Okay.
I had no hair.
Okay.
But you come to this realization, and you're not really sure what to do with it, and you kind of just keep rolling off the momentum of the past. But it was never something that it obviously stuck with me, that moment, and maybe I see it differently in my mind's eye. But I think for me, race was never something that like I identified with. So growing up, it was regardless of the color of my friends, it wasn't something that like that my parents really ever made a thing of. Even though my dad experienced racism growing up in the South, and he never really like at a young age made me aware of it. And I think he did that consciously. I know he did it consciously. And I applaud that, because it wasn't something that like color wasn't something that was like a main identify, like I said, and so I was able to kind of move through the world in a way that was different.
And did you live with both parents? Or?
Yeah, my parents were together.
Okay.
My parents were together up until I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean they provided me with a really kind of advantageous experience in my view. But my dad, that's not to say, because my dad really did, like, as I grew older, make me aware of, like, yo, son, like, you carry yourself in the right way, because regardless of, like, if your mom is white, like, the world sees you as black. So
One drop rule.
yeah, it's the one drop. So it's like, yo, you carry yourself poised, you carry yourself this way and that way. It's like, don't disrespect. And so it's like these things that he instills in you as a black man, not as a biracial mixed boy. You know, it's like,
You tried to, like, protect your innocence for as long as possible.
right, yeah, right, exactly. And he did it, yeah. And I'm